You'll love it. Hey everybody, it's Nikki from Out the Store. Did you know that I also, in addition to traveling and doing gardening, taking pictures and things like that, I also do a lot of stuff inside. I also do a lot of art inside, and I also do a lot of writing. I want to show you these awesome journals that I make. You're going to see lots of different varieties of these. It's a really, really easy project to do. It doesn't matter your age or your ability. In fact, the stiffer you are, the more type A you are, this is the funner this project is, because it really gets you into your creative zone in a really, really easy way. Instead of buying journals, I used to, of course I had this will show my age. Of course I had the Ricky Schroeder notebook, you know, when I was back in school, and I'm sure I had to pay for it because it was extra. Like, mom's going to pay that extra 10 cents, gosh knows. Now I go through so many of these composition journals that I like decorating them and making them my own, and it's fun, and it's a really, really easy project to do. Decoupage has been around for a long time. It actually means to cut out pictures and then you glue them down. All right, so let's talk about some of the stuff that you need. You probably have most of it at home. So for these journals, I'm using one of these composition books. Cheap to get, you know, right before the school year begins. And the reason I like them so much is, well, I like the size. They're a little bit smaller and easier to kind of stick in a backpack. Now the other option, even cheaper, these guys are like, what, 10, 25 cents or something like that. And you can use this. The problem is you can't go over these holes and you can't go over the spiral bounding. So the picture is going to start from here to there. And to me, that kind of loses the effect. I really like how these composition books make that hard black edge. And then if you wanted to, you could take stuff around the side, around the back, but only if it goes pretty far into the back. You can't leave the picture on the spine. It'll just pop right up again. So keep that in mind. I think these are the nicest looking. What are these? 25 to 50 cents when the kids go back to school. I pick up a bunch of them. And the other one that you really don't want to use, this is a journal, one of these cute little decorative journals that has a cloth cover. The glue, the pictures don't really stick to the cloth very well, so don't use that. These are the best. Okay, you'll need a brush. I use these cheapy sponge brushes that you get at Joann's, do the makeup version. Again, because they're like 10, 25 cents, and probably getting even cheaper anymore. You can use a regular paintbrush, especially like an artistic kind of regular paint. You wouldn't want to use a house painting brush. That would cost way too much money. But even these, I mean, this is like filled with glitter. So I must have gotten it for one of my daughters. She's 29 now, but she was, you know, went through her glitter phase when she was 5. So I've had this sitting around. They're really, really soft bristles. This will work nicely too, but it's expensive. I use it for watercolor. I'm not going to use it for glue. What I do with these is after I use them for gluing, especially gluing down this whole front, by the time you're done with this, even though it only takes about 15 minutes, the glue is going to get stuck in this brush and it's going to start to dry and crackle. I just throw the darn thing away. Okay, the brush that's really not going to work, these are these cheapy nylon bristles. They're really kind of almost wiry feeling. They're cheapy nylon. They're still more expensive than the sponge brushes, but also this won't let you move that glue around. It's going to be more like, it'll look like you're moving pasta sauce around. It's like, okay, glue, let's talk about glue. Mod Podge is definitely the best. I'm going to call it Mod Podge through this entire show. I know there's like a huge debate on what you call it. I say Mod Podge. It's obviously Mod Podge. This comes in glossy or matte. It doesn't matter which one you use. I find both of them to be quite glossy. The glossy is glossier than the matte, but the matte is still glossy. What you don't want to use is you don't want to use a Yoo-hoo glue stick. We're going to use this for a lot of other craft projects. Don't worry. Also, you don't want to use tacky glue. Tacky glue is super strong. This is great for three-dimensional objects. We're going to talk about how to put three-dimensional stuff on your journal, so you could use it for the start of that, but it doesn't dry the same as with the same speed as the Mod Podge. Also, Mod Podge is a heck of a lot cheaper. Tacky glue is more expensive because you're going to use it more sparingly for other projects. What you're also going to do with this Mod Podge is you're going to dilute it to about a quarter, a third. A third is fantastic. So might as well get the big jars that are cheap and use this cheaper stuff. It's the same thing as white glue. So you can use white glue thin down as well if you've got that hanging out. Awesome. Okay, so now let's talk about the pictures. There's lots of different feelings of paper out there. I'm really lucky. I've got a ton of old magazines that run that really fibrous paper, and the pictures are really cool too. So you can use that. You can use magazines. Glossy magazines are totally okay, even glossier. I got some calendars in here, Lord of the Rings calendar in here. This is a poster of different animals. It's a snake from Arizona, or so even if they're glossy, that's totally fine. Dictionary pages work great. If you're into the Bible, it's got that nice, really fibrous paper. It really soaks up the paper. You can also use wrapping paper. You can also use decorative paper, like whatever papers you've got. The paper you do not want to use is you don't want to use vellum. It's going to dry differently and crinkle differently. You can use it sparingly and see how it works, but it's for those of you who do rubber stamping like me, and you got some vellum, don't use it. The other thing you don't want to use is newsprint. The reason why you don't want to use and I know this is very newsprinty type of paper. Let me explain. You don't want to use newspaper because what happens with the newspaper is what it underneath is going to bleed through. So don't even bother. The mailers, though, that come in your mailbox once a week, they seem to be a heavier newsprint, so that's okay. But the regular newspaper is going to be way too thin, and what you'll get is whatever on the back is going to want to come through. So don't use that. Okay, the last thing you need is a pair of scissors. It doesn't matter what kind of scissors. In fact, you can even tear the paper. You can use scissors with the weird crinkly edges. That's fine too. As you learn this cutting in technique and as you practice it, you'll have your favorite pair of scissors. We all have our favorite pairs of scissors for different crafts that we're doing. So any pair will work just fine. What I am going to recommend that you do is watch this video all the way through. I know it's long. I'm going to be talking to you about not only how to do this project, so there's a tutorial involved in it, but I'm also going to talk to you about some different artist concepts, how I work as an artist with a small a artist, and so it should be pretty fun. And everything's divided into chapters. Of course, you'll see that the timestamps in the description. So I would recommend watching it all the way through, and then do the project on you. That'll be enough for you to put all the steps in your head. So the first thing I look for as I dig through papers is I look for a character, somebody to be the hero. So here's a great character here. Let's look at some other characters. I've got all kinds of pictures here. Let me talk a little bit about the type of pages. This is a really old magazine, so the pages are really fibrous. That's awesome. This is an old children's book. It's got pretty fibrous paper. An old map. This book is actually a book of old papers, and it's a book. It's got more glossy coverings to it. Those also work. So does your old calendars. Got a couple calendars here. Tolkien calendar. These are a little more glossy, which is fine. Magazine papers, how glossy they are, sometimes they don't really work. The rougher the texture, really the better. So we're just digging through. We're looking for a character. Here's a character here, but he's really small. We want a hero for our story. So that's what I wanted to look at. But I also want to look at one that's easy to cut out. This is not easy to cut out. That's like way too much here. This is beautiful. You don't have to have a person. You can have an inanimate object or an animal for your character. Anything that you can imbibe with some kind of feelings. So as I've been digging through this, I actually found a character that I really, really liked. It was this gal here. And what I liked was her kind of silly, pouty kind of looking face. She looks like she's making a complaint to this guy here. And maybe he's, kind of luring her away from something. I'm not quite sure. But I always look for a character first when I'm creating a new scene for this. So I put those people aside. Also, while I was digging through this tub of old papers, I found this this old comic. And I thought these were really hilarious because this says, I talk to the trees, but they don't listen to me. And I liked this complaint, so I cut this out. And it seems to go really well with this woman because she looks like she's a ditz. So there's something about her. I want to tell a story about her. And I want to make a kind of silly kind of contradiction with what's going on. When you find your main character of a decoupage scene you want to create, they're going to help you, you know, find what kind of setting and what kind of story we've got to tell. You know, maybe she wants to tell the story about this guy here with the lambs. I don't know. Maybe they want to take a road trip instead. You know, I just kind of place the characters with different things. But when I saw this writing, I really wanted to put all this together. But it was way too busy with that as the background. So in that Tolkien calendar right here, there was this wonderful picture of Loch Lothian with the trees. And I thought, that's kind of perfect. So I actually put everything else away. And I started putting these three things together. And then at some point, somehow or another, this like fell in too. And I thought, this really completes this idea of these characters in this setting, and some things are going wrong. Like, I talk to the trees, but they don't listen to me. Well, that's really the power of nature to ignore you. So I decided this is my scene, and I want to put it on this book. So how are we going to do that? So the first thing I did is just kind of to find how it fits. Obviously, this page, you know, when I open it up, I can get a little bit better. I don't want the decoupage to go over the corner. So I'm going to put these guys right here. Obviously, I don't need to use this whole picture. I don't want the picture from The Hobbit happening. So, I want him to show. Their heads are really important to me, and the trees are really important to me. So I'm going to bring this image down a little bit more, but I don't want that thing right there. So I'm going to kind of put it over like that. Then I got enough trees. And then the bottom, this is actually really a lot harder to find the bottom. I don't want the hobbits in there. So I actually want this down quite a bit. But I don't want that top. So I got to make sure that these all kind of fit. And then the edge of the book is actually right here. So I'm going to cut that hobbit right off, which would be great. But as you can see now, I don't have any of these trees in here either. So I'm actually going to move this over a little bit more. But that means I got to cut off all that stuff on the side. This is still not showing very well. So I got to cut off all that stuff on the side. So I'm going to get rid of quite a bit of this, but I want it to be really nice and straight so that it's along this edge, but they're actually going to be cut over with these guys. That's what's going to make the edge right there. So this doesn't much matter, but I want to be able to have her against the trees. So I'm going to cut right about but I want to make sure that all these parts stay. I'll get rid of this edge. I'm just doing rough cuts right now. It's not going to be the end cut. Just gets rid of some of this stuff so I can see where things are. Okay, so these trees are important. These trees are important. Their head is important. So I gotta, this is how much I can work with. And I want this hobbit cut off from the bottom. Now I can put just an image over him. I think that's what I'm gonna have to wind up doing. Here's the part I really want to show you about the cleverness of decoupage is we want to make these people be on a whole new setting. We want them to be on this setting like they blend in. If we just put this on here, they still look like they're in their background. So we're going to take all that background off. And to do that, we're actually going to cut in just a tiny bit. see how I'm getting rid of a tiny edge of the inside. I'm not cutting on the outside here. It would still it would show that background. I want to cut that background completely off. So I'm going to cut into her just a tiny smidgen. Obviously, some of the detail will be gone. You know, we saw a little bit of her glove is kind of gone now. I'm going to lose a tiny bit of this collar, but that's okay, because that's how I am as an artist. I'm okay with that happening. Oh, I did not want to rip her neck. I'm okay with that happening, because I'm not going to use my utility knife or something like that. That's just taking it way too far for me. You are welcome to do that. You've got to steady your hand and more patience. There's more need to do that. That's fine, but I don't do it that way. I'm also going to get rid of that little piece of hair there because she doesn't need it. And it just, so yeah, you lose a little bit of the detail, but nobody's going to actually know because they won't see that it's not there. So again, see how that tiny bit of her is coming out? That's going to help create that illusion. Let me show you. Now, doesn't she look like she's actually there? It looks so much more like she's there instead of this surrounding her. Then she's not in this scene. We take that surrounding completely off and suddenly she's in this scene. So that's what we're going for. I am very particular about using stuff I already have. I like giving myself parameters on this because, you know, in this day and age, we can go to the internet, we can get a picture of anything. We can have AI make us a picture of anything. I've always been more of the sort that I kind of feel that that's cheating. I really want to use what I already have. You know, us artists, we just keep, you know, more materials. We're totally like that. I get it. I'm that way. So I really want to use up some of the stuff that I have. And so this vintagey box of stuff, you know, gives me all kinds of stuff to work with. Instead of having the whole world at my fingertips, I'm narrowing it down to what I already have. And that kind of forces me to be more creative. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but instead of like being open to anything, I've got a mindset already that I want to narrow it down to some of the stuff that I already have. Okay, now take a look at them. Aren't they much more in the scene than they were before? Isn't that awesome? So I'm also going to do that to this. I don't want this with this background, so I'm going to get rid of this background as well. This one has a line, so I'm actually going to stay to that line as best I can. I can't draw. I wish I could draw, but I can't draw for crap. So I use images, other images all the time. And like I said, instead of finding any image I want, I use the images that I have to create something new. And what I'm doing is I'm creating an experience at the same time. I'm letting the story unfold before my eyes. I'm going to share that story with you. So that looks a lot better. You can actually see that image a lot better now that that matrix has been removed. This one, I can leave this as long. I might even cut it up. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so I want these trees to show. I need the edge of my page over here. Use this as kind of a guide. Looks like is I've got a tiny bit of space over here because I want these two trees. And so the edge of the book is like here. And I want this edge kind of to land about right there. And I want this edge to land, I want this guy to be inside a little bit more. So I actually need to move this So I've got these parameters that I need to work with. I just need to figure out exactly where it goes. Once we lay this down with glue, we can't pick it back up again. So we got to do this now. I think that's going to be good. So what I need to do is cut out underneath this guy. Again, I'm going to start rough first, and then I'll get more particular. So that's not quite. I really want at least part of this tree to show. So, but I still need to get over a little bit more. And you can twist it and turn it. That's totally fine. I'm gonna get rid of some more of this. This doesn't need to be an exact science because this is a nice clear edge right there. Okay, so that puts that tree right about there. And then this guy, he's going to create the edge of that picture right up against that black. And you know what? He's not making a hard edge, so we're just going to make a new edge here. I don't mind cutting off a little bit of him, but I do want to keep his head. So we know that there's trees behind her. That's really, really important because then we're going to add that. It kind of makes her a flibbity gibbet, doesn't it? I've talked to the trees, but they don't listen to me. Well, that's the power of nature. Also, we covered up that hobbit. That's nice. Now I can keep this as a nice long, lean look here. Really like her buttons. Or I can cut it. I could cut it down the middle, but I like how this R is swooping, so I'm just going to leave it as one long piece. Sorry, that's the dog whining on it. So now, am I happy with how things are? I don't like how her hands cut off here, but I think, so what I've got to do is I've got to make sure that when I place them on here, that his head goes over the top. That his head is along that top. Okay, so now we're ready. We got all our scene, we got it planned out. Now we're ready to do the gluing. You're gonna dilute this by about 1/3. I think I've already diluted it in my past life. Almost positive. Obviously I haven't closed it properly. So I just poured a little in here. Here's water from my water bottle. I'm just gonna put a little dab of water in there. No more than 1/3. It's not an exact science. But the heavier the paper, the more glue it's going to take. One of the first things we got to do is protect the rest of the pages. Right in there. And that's going to do it. That's all that we need. Now the trick to, this is a really, really simple image that I've got because I only got 4 pieces here. The trick to decoupage is glue, glue, glue every layer from the bottom upward. So I know that this is the first one. This is going to be the last. This is 2, this is 3. So they're gonna go in this order. This one, this one, this one, this one. All right, and actually, some of these too. All right, so we put a nice thick coating. We gotta work pretty fast. So all that preliminary stuff, we had to get all that done first so that we can do this. Make sure you're going all the way to the edges with this. This Mod Podge is going to dry glossy. So I do want to put it to the edge so that the glossy is all over the edge. But you don't have to. That's going to show, and I'm fine with that. So you'll see what's happening with this is it's sucking up the moisture. That's really, really important. Because we want everything to be moist. If something's dry, it's not going to stick well. You're going to ruin the whole picture. Is what you're going to do. So you can't go too heavy on the glue. Just throw it on there. Now, once we put this down, you can't pick it back up again. So you make sure that the edges are where you want them. Remember, I want to get rid of this guy. I want this to kind of go to the edge. This is at the top. We figured out that her picture covers this guy, so that's okay. We're just going to push it down. Now, you can do any kind of surface. It doesn't have to be crisp and neat. It should be relatively smooth, and it's a heck of a lot easier to work with when it's relatively flat. So just work on pushing some of those out. Now here's this next part that's super important. You gotta cover it again. You gotta keep every layer, you gotta cover it. And you gotta cover it all the way to the edges. And no matter how much you push down, it's never gonna totally stay. Again, some of that depends on how much glue. This is happening because it's a very glossy piece of paper. You're gonna see with this other piece of paper that is not gonna be, I've got 3 different types of paper here really. So you're gonna see how the different paper reacts to the glue. And that's part of what you're gonna learn doing decoupage. But it's got to soak up all this water too. That's why we go to the edge. It's why, you know, cutting these pages is actually really important to do. And as it gets wet, you're gonna have to use your fingers. It's just how it is. It's gonna shrink, it's gonna move, the sizing's gonna come out, you're gonna get ripples. This is supposed to be fun. And it's not supposed to be perfect. So this is one way, you know, I get adults like connecting with their inner child is to not take this so seriously. Obviously, you can make it more serious, but if you're learning how to do this and you're doing art for fun, which you should be, you know, if you're doing art for a living already, well then you're already beyond what I'm going to be teaching you in these videos. But if you're doing art for fun, which is where you probably are at, it's okay with some mistakes. We're going to learn how to get rid of some of those mistakes. So yeah, so that's, you know, it's for life. Some of this is going to sink down more as time goes on, but like I said, you're putting a bunch of stuff in there, trying to get to the edge, making sure you get to the edge. Okay, now this is the more important piece. So remember, her hand was ripped before, so I want to make sure her hand gets in there. I want to make sure that this guy creates kind of an edge, and I want to make sure I have his head in that picture. But I also want to make sure that he is covering that background. Now watch as these, you know, once I can't move this now, you know. Her hand is right on the edge there. It's going to be just fine. Push this down a little bit. Now back to this. What I also tried to do was put him over the edge of that background just a little bit, because this paper is going to stick a heck of a lot better. It really, really is. Okay. Keep adding this, right? Going over the edge. These little marks all over the place. Alright, just keep going. And you can keep pushing stuff. I wouldn't worry about this like too terribly much. You will get a wrinkle, it's just how it is. But it's gonna flatten. Like right now it's soaking up all this. It's called sizing. And it's gonna soak up all this stuff. I mean, that's just how life goes. Like I said, you're gonna get some wrinkles and stuff like that. Now, this, we had an idea of it could kind of go anywhere. Should it go right here? Should it go right here? I want it so that I can see the trees, but I know that she's the one talking. But I also want to make sure I'm not overboard. See how difficult, some of this can pick up really well and others of it can't. So I'm going to actually do this. Put it over there. And again, I'm covering it up. Covering it up. Will you get stroke marks? Yeah, you will. This is self-leveling. The more water you have in it, the more it's going to self-level. The less water you have in it, the more you're going to see. You're going to see some of these bubbles. You're going to see some streaks. You can have fun with that. I'll show you that in some other videos. This is a much heavier piece of paper. It came from a book. So it's not flimsy. This is pretty heavy. So I'm going to make sure to add a little bit more glue. I want this to kind of be an afterthought, so I don't want this like super, super close. I want this down here. But keep in mind, if it goes over the edge, it's so heavy that it might start to come off. And then more. We can move it a little bit easier with the brush. All right. I loved her buttons here. This is going to be really hard to find. The thing about this is anything that sticks up is going to create some friction. So this may or may not work. I don't know what I wanted. I am losing time right now. This is bad time. like right where her button is for her dress. I want it to pop a little bit. Oh, I don't like that pink one. See how it's already really sticking. Get rid of that guy. So here's the trouble, is once I cover it again, I won't be able to see it very well. But this is drying all the time, right? If I'm too rough on this, it will disappear. I won't be able to find it. Everything's really sticky. Okay, I want those to stick, so guess what I'm gonna do. Okay, yeah, so like I said, these little, if you want to go over it again. If you want to make swirls, you know, you can make swirls. That's fun. Make sure you've gotten all that all the way to the edge here. See how things are curling back up again. If they have different, you know, the papers are a little bit different, they're going to accept the moisture, that sizing a little differently. They're all going to do it a little bit differently. So, you know, part of this is the fun of like, what's it going to do? What's it going to do? I might even want to hold it down for a minute or two. That might help. It's going to soak up more stuff as it goes along. Okay, because all of this leans over so much onto the other side, what I'm also going to make sure is that roady this is, huh? Okay, this is going to take overnight to dry, but I also want to make sure that the edge is the glue is all the way to the edge. Done. It's nice and dry. So we're going to cut out the back. I'll just use this as a guide cover. Here so that it conforms to the book, and there we are. I didn't lose his head, kept the tree fairly straight. This is holding on pretty well. So got some of the edges up, and there's really no rules to it at all. This is just how I do it, and hopefully as you do it, you'll decide some new fun ways to do this too. So here again, here's our hero, and he's got a little prop, which is this person, and these are two different pictures. And how I did this was I cut out the arm and wound up making a little slit that I could slide that person into. And this is pick up as many as you want to. Let's see. And up above it says rich in cholesterol, but they taste good. I am constantly cutting out words out of magazines, and I keep them in a big bag, and I use them not only for this, but I play with them too. I'll take them to adults who are learning how to write. It's great creative writing. It's a really great icebreaker. You can make games out of it. And it's a really easy thing to do on the plane, like you're waiting for the plane to take off. You can't use your cell phone. That's a fun thing to do. Okay, let's talk about this one real quick, because this one's this one's one of my favorites. I don't know why. Well, partly because I'm from Arizona. I absolutely love Arizona. These are all pictures out of the Arizona Highways magazine. Actually, from the Arizona Highways calendar, which is heftier than the magazine, so you can see how hefty stuff comes on. And there must be tons of different. I think there's like 6 or 7 different pages that I cut out, images that I cut out to make this. But one of the compositional things that I want to show you is about words. We've talked a lot about words in this program and in this tutorial video. And so typically what we do is we do read top to bottom, left to right, right? Except when the text is really big. If the text is really big, your eye's going to go to that first. They're going to read that first. So, and this one I have Arizona is his day job. And here's our heroes. Look at how teeny they are. I don't know if they're the same guys. I don't think so. But that makes that landscape be much, much bigger. Talking about items that are 3-dimensional, all these buttons are real buttons that I put on this page. So every time you have something 3-dimensional, it can get, there's a lot of glue around here too. The hole's glued, all the holes are in. It has to really be stuck down really, really hard, but also they're going to snag on everything. You know, when you're putting this in and out of your laptop bag, carrying it around, just rubbing your hand over the page, that can all be really annoying with 3-dimensional items. So I made sure nothing was sharp. It's all kind of round. But also, if you have this journal for a really long time and you're using it and carrying it everywhere for a really long time, it's going to get more beat up because of this. So I'm thinking that this journal was actually used really, really quickly because it's hardly beat up at all. But that's what I want to warn you about. You can see in this one too, all the kind of coordinating colors that happen. I am not a coordinating colors kind of person, so I'm a little surprised about how this one turned out. And that's the fun of these. You'll notice they're not attached to the journal anymore. Like I'll scan what appears in these journals, save them digitally, and then I'll save just the covers. Sometimes I'm done with the covers, after I scan that, and I've got a digital record of those, and then I get rid of them because I make these all the time. And then all 3 of these are real pictures that I took out of a photo album that my mom gave me. We didn't remember who any of these people were anymore. So you can use real photographs as well. Okay, so we did it. You watched the entire video. You saw how to do this. Now you're ready to go do it. 90% of what you're going to do is looking for, that's not even a good picture, is looking for your different pictures and putting it out. And then you're going to spend 15 minutes gluing it up, and the rest is waiting for it to be done. So you are totally ready. You know everything you need to know. And you are creative and awesome. Have fun playing. And leave some comments. Let me know where to see. I'd love to see your stuff. I'd love to see what you create. I'd love to do art with you, play art someday.